The storm raged outside, shaking the windows of Alex's small apartment. Rain pounded against the glass, and every few seconds, a flash of lightning lit up the dark room. Alex shifted under his blanket, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. He had always loved the sound of rain. But tonight, something about it felt different. There was a strange energy in the air, something he couldn't explain. Then he heard it. A faint click, like a window unlocking. Alex frowned and sat up. Maybe it was just the wind. He tried to convince himself, but his gut told him otherwise. He reached for his phone on the nightstand and turned on the flashlight. Slowly, he scanned the room. Nothing. Everything was where it should be: his desk, his chair, his bookshelf. Then, another sound, a soft rustling. This time, it came from the far corner of his room, near the window. His breath caught in his throat. Someone was there. The next flash of lightning revealed a shadow, a tall, slender figure standing completely still. Alex's stomach twisted in fear. His mind screamed at him to run, to shout, to do anything. But his body wouldn't move. Then the figure stepped forward. It was a woman. Even in the dim light, Alex could see she was unlike anyone he had ever seen before. Her long silver hair shimmered slightly, as if reflecting the light in an unnatural way. Her skin had a faint glow, and her eyes, bright, glowing blue eyes, locked onto his. Alex's heart pounded. Who was she? How did she get in? The woman raised a hand, palm facing him, as if telling him to stay calm. "Please, don't be afraid," she said softly. Her voice was smooth, almost musical. Alex swallowed hard, gripping his phone like a weapon. "Who are you?" he demanded. "How did you get in here?" She hesitated. Then, taking a shaky breath, she whispered, "I had no choice. They're coming for me." Alex's fear turned into confusion. They? Who was she talking about? Before he could ask, another flash of lightning struck, and in that split second of brightness, Alex saw something outside his window. A shadow. Moving. Fast. A strange, low hum filled the air. It wasn't coming from the storm. It was something else. Something unnatural. The woman's glowing eyes widened in panic. "They found me." Suddenly, the lights in Alex's apartment flickered, and a deep vibration ran through the floor. It felt like the whole building was shaking. The woman took a step closer, grabbing Alex's wrist. Her touch was cool, but there was strength in her grip. "Listen to me," she said urgently. "You have to trust me. If we don't leave now, we're both dead." Alex's mind raced. This had to be a dream. A strange woman breaking into his apartment. Mysterious figures outside. The building shaking. None of this made sense, but when he looked into her glowing blue eyes, he saw something he didn't expect. Fear. She was scared. And that terrified him even more. Then, before he could react, something slammed against his front door. A single, heavy bang. Then another. Alex's breath came in short gasps. Something was trying to break in. The woman gripped his wrist tighter. "We need to leave. Now." The door rattled under the force of the blows. Whatever was outside wasn't human. Alex had only seconds to decide. Run with this mysterious woman into the unknown, or stay and face whatever horror was about to break through his door. Lightning flashed again. The door handle began to turn. And Alex made his choice. Alex barely had time to think before the woman yanked him toward the window. His instincts screamed at him to pull away, to demand answers, but the urgency in her glowing blue eyes kept him frozen in place. Outside, the storm raged on, but it was no longer the loudest thing in the room. A metallic clang echoed through the apartment as the door buckled under the force of another heavy blow. Whatever was trying to get in wasn't knocking, it was breaking through. "Move," the woman urged. Alex barely managed to grab his jacket before she pulled him toward the open window. "Wait," he started, but she didn't listen. With unnatural ease, she leaped onto the windowsill and turned back to him, extending a hand. "Trust me." Outside, rain pelted against the fire escape. Wind howled through the alley below. It was a long drop, and Alex had no idea where she expected them to go. But then he heard it. A deep, unearthly growl from behind the door. It wasn't human. That was all the convincing he needed. He grabbed her hand. The moment their fingers touched, a strange warmth flooded through him. It wasn't just warmth. It was a surge of energy, like a current running through his veins. His vision sharpened, his mind cleared, and suddenly, moving felt easier, lighter. Before he could question it, she yanked him forward, and they jumped. Cold air rushed past them as they landed on the fire escape with a metallic thud. Alex stumbled but managed to keep his balance. The woman didn't hesitate. She grabbed his hand again and took off down the narrow steps. "Who are you?" he finally demanded between breaths. "What the hell is going on?" She didn't answer. Instead, she suddenly stopped, so fast that Alex nearly crashed into her. She pressed herself against the metal railing, her glowing blue eyes scanning the alley below. Alex followed her gaze, and his stomach dropped. A figure stood at the end of the alley, cloaked in shadow. It was tall, its silhouette unnaturally still despite the heavy wind. And then, just as the lightning flashed, he saw it. Its eyes. Not human, not even clothes. They gleamed a deep, eerie red. The woman tensed. Alex didn't need to be told. Whoever that was, they were looking for her. And now for him too. "We can't go that way," she whispered. "There's another exit. Come on." She grabbed his hand again and pulled him toward the opposite side of the fire escape. They climbed down 2 more levels, and then, to Alex's horror, she stopped in front of a sheer drop. No ladder, no more stairs, just open air. Alex's chest tightened. "Are you insane? That's a 3-story drop." For the first time, she turned and smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was a knowing one. "Not if you trust me." Alex didn't have time to argue. The door to the apartment above them slammed open, and heavy footsteps rang against the fire escape. Whatever was chasing them was coming. Before he could protest, she wrapped an arm around him and jumped. Alex braced for impact. He expected the cold, hard ground to meet them in seconds, but it didn't happen. Instead, they floated. Not like falling, like gliding. For a second, Alex's brain refused to process what was happening. They hovered just above the ground. And then, as if gravity itself had changed, they landed lightly on their feet. His knees buckled. He gasped for air, his heart pounding. What? The woman didn't let him finish. She grabbed his face gently, forcing him to look at her. "I need you to listen to me, Alex." Her voice was serious now, almost desperate. "They are not from this world. And if we don't keep moving, they will take you too." Alex's head spun. He felt like he was in a dream. No, a nightmare. But the fear in her voice was real. And so were the red eyes still watching them from the alley. Alex's heart pounded as he followed the mysterious woman through the darkened streets. Rain poured relentlessly, soaking his clothes, but the cold was the least of his worries. His mind was spinning, trying to make sense of what had just happened. He had just floated to the ground. That wasn't possible. None of this was possible. And yet here he was, running through the city with an alien woman whose glowing blue eyes held secrets he couldn't begin to understand. "Where are we going?" Alex finally managed to ask between breaths. She didn't answer immediately. Her focus was locked on the empty road ahead, as if she were scanning for danger. Only after a few more blocks did she glance at him. "Somewhere safe," she said. "Somewhere they can't track us." Alex swallowed hard. "And who exactly is they?" She hesitated, but before she could respond, a strange humming noise filled the air. It was low at first, almost like an electrical vibration. But within seconds, it grew louder, deeper, unnatural. The sound sent a chill down Alex's spine. The woman froze mid-step, her grip on his wrist tightening. "They're close," she whispered. Alex didn't need to ask what she meant. A sudden flash of red light illuminated the street behind them. Alex turned just in time to see a dark figure emerge from the shadows. It wasn't human. Its form flickered, like a glitch in reality, shifting between solid and translucent. Its red eyes burned through the rain, locked directly onto him. Panic surged through Alex. "We have to move," the woman hissed. Before Alex could react, she grabbed his arm, and suddenly the world blurred around them. It was as if reality itself twisted. Buildings, streetlights, and even the rain streaked into indistinct shapes. His stomach lurched, his brain screamed in protest, but before he could even process the sensation, it was over. They weren't on the street anymore. Alex stumbled, nearly falling to his knees as he gasped for breath. They had moved. No, teleported, to an entirely different location. He looked up in shock. They were now standing in a dimly lit underground tunnel. The walls were damp, the air thick with the scent of earth and stone. Water dripped from pipes overhead, echoing through the cavernous space. "What?" Alex struggled to speak. "What just happened?" The woman released his arm and exhaled deeply. "I shifted us." "Shifted us? What does that even mean?" His voice cracked. "How did we get here?" She ran a hand through her wet hair. "It's complicated, and we don't have time to explain right now." Alex clenched his fists. No more running. No more cryptic answers. He sucked in a shaky breath. "I just want to know what the hell is going on." The woman studied him for a long moment. Then, as if deciding something, she sighed. "My name is Zyra," she said finally, "and I am not supposed to be here." Alex blinked. "What does that mean?" She hesitated, glancing down the tunnel as if making sure they were still alone. Then she turned back to him, her glowing eyes filled with something he couldn't quite decipher. Fear, guilt. "I came to Earth by accident," she admitted, "but now I'm being hunted." Alex's stomach twisted. By who? Her expression darkened. By the Aetherian hunters. The name meant nothing to him, but the way she said it sent a shiver down his spine. "They are not from your world," she continued, "and neither am I." Alex ran a hand over his face. "Yeah, I kind of figured that when we jumped off a building and didn't die." Zyra actually smirked at that, but the moment of amusement faded quickly. "They've been tracking me for weeks," she said. "I thought I lost them, but when the storm hit, I was vulnerable." Alex frowned. "And that's why you broke into my apartment." She nodded. "I needed a place to hide. I didn't think they'd find me so soon." Alex exhaled sharply, trying to wrap his head around everything. Alien fugitives, red-eyed hunters, teleportation. This was not how he expected his night to go. "Okay," he said finally. "So what happens now?" Zyra's expression grew serious. "Now, we prepare, because if they found me once, they'll find me again." A deep guttural growl echoed through the tunnel. Alex's blood ran cold. They already had. Alex barely had time to react before Zyra grabbed his wrist and pulled him into a sprint. The growl echoed through the underground tunnel, reverberating off the damp stone walls like some kind of monstrous war cry. The air grew thick, heavy, charged with an unnatural energy that sent every nerve in his body screaming in alarm. Behind them, the shadows shifted. Alex risked a glance over his shoulder, and instantly regretted it. Something inhuman was emerging from the darkness. It was tall, its skeletal frame wrapped in a pulsating black mist that seemed to flicker in and out of reality. Its elongated limbs moved with an unnatural grace, each step impossibly silent despite its towering size. And its eyes, those burning red eyes, locked onto him with an intelligence far beyond anything Alex had ever encountered. It wasn't just hunting Zyra. It was hunting him now too. Faster. Zyra hissed, her grip like iron as she yanked him forward. Alex's legs burned as they ran deeper into the tunnels, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The underground passages twisted and turned, a maze of forgotten corridors, but Zyra moved like she knew exactly where she was going. The creature let out a low, guttural hiss, and suddenly the walls around them vibrated. Alex stumbled as a deep, bone-rattling pulse of energy surged through the air. The tunnel warped, its very structure flickering, as if reality itself was glitching. "What the hell is it doing?" Alex shouted, trying to keep his balance. Zyra's face was grim. "It's distorting space. It's trying to cut us off." And she was right. Ahead of them, the tunnel shifted. The passage they had been running toward suddenly stretched and twisted, like someone had pulled it apart and rearranged it in real time. The exit they were aiming for vanished, replaced by a solid stone wall. They were trapped. Alex skidded to a halt, heart hammering against his ribs. "Okay, this is bad." Zyra turned sharply, pressing a hand against the wall, as if searching for a weakness. But there was none. Behind them, the creature advanced. It moved slowly now, methodically, like a predator savoring its inevitable victory. The flickering mist around its body seemed to consume the light, making the tunnel grow darker with every step it took. Alex clenched his fists, adrenaline surging through his veins. "What do we do?" Zyra exhaled, her glowing blue eyes narrowing. "We fight." Alex stared at her. "We what?" She reached inside the folds of her strange, shimmering jacket and pulled out a small metallic device, no larger than a pocket watch. It hummed faintly in her palm, glowing with a soft silver light. "You said you wanted answers," she murmured, her voice eerily calm. Alex nodded, swallowing hard. Zyra's eyes met his, then watched closely. The creature lunged. Everything happened at once. Zyra moved like lightning, her body twisting with an unnatural speed as she flicked the device towards the advancing figure. The moment it left her hand, the air around them crackled, a sharp snap of displaced energy. The device expanded midair, unfolding into a floating ring of swirling metal and light. A pulse erupted from its center. The creature screeched, not in pain, but in anger. The force of the pulse sent Alex stumbling back, shielding his eyes as the walls of the tunnel trembled violently. A barrier of shimmering energy erupted between them and the creature, crackling with raw power. The being reeled, its form flickering wildly, as if struggling to maintain its presence in this plane of existence. Zyra didn't hesitate. She grabbed Alex's hand again and yanked him towards a narrow opening in the tunnel he hadn't even noticed before. "Move." The barrier wouldn't last long. They darted into the hidden passage just as the creature let out a roar of fury, its red eyes flashing with pure hatred. The last thing Alex saw before turning away was the thing slamming its clawed hand against the barrier, causing it to ripple dangerously. They ran. The narrow tunnel was rough and uneven, a stark contrast to the structured pathways of the underground corridors. The ceiling was low, forcing Alex to duck as they moved through the winding passage. The air was colder here, laced with the scent of damp earth, and something else, something metallic. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a massive chamber. Alex gasped. The underground cavern stretched far beyond what should have been possible. Towering structures, alien in design, rose from the ground, glowing with the same eerie silver light that Zyra's device had emitted. Strange symbols pulsed along the walls, shifting in ways his mind struggled to comprehend. This wasn't just some hidden tunnel. This was something ancient, something not of this world. Zyra took a deep breath, steadying herself. "We should be safe here for a moment," she said. Alex turned to her, eyes wide. "Where the hell are we?" She hesitated. Then, with a quiet certainty, she spoke the words that sent a shiver down his spine. "The last refuge of my people." Alex's breath came in short gasps as he took in the massive underground cavern, the towering structures, the pulsing alien symbols, the eerie silver glow. It all felt too unreal, like he had stepped into a world that had no place beneath the surface of Earth. He turned to Zira, his mind racing. "You're telling me this place, this whole damned city, is from your people?" Zira nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on the strange structures ahead. "Yes, this was one of our last sanctuaries, a hidden refuge long before your world even had names for the stars." Alex ran a hand through his hair, trying to process. "And now it's abandoned." Zira's expression darkened, not abandoned, lost. A shiver crawled up his spine. Before he could ask what she meant, a deep mechanical rumbling echoed through the cavern. The ground beneath them vibrated, subtle at first, then stronger, sending tiny bits of rock tumbling from the ceiling. Zira's head snapped up. Alex swallowed hard. "That's not a good sound, is it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed his wrist and pulled him forward. "We need to move. Now." Alex had no choice but to follow as she led him deeper into the ruined city. The structures around them were massive, almost organic in their design, with smooth curves instead of sharp angles. It felt alien yet familiar, as if the architecture had once thrived with life, but had since been reclaimed by time. But something was wrong. The air felt heavier, charged with an energy Alex couldn't explain. The symbols on the walls flickered erratically, their glow pulsating like a dying heartbeat. Then he saw it, a monolithic door towering over them, covered in the same shifting symbols. But unlike the rest, these symbols were alive. They twisted, forming new shapes before his eyes, as if responding to his presence. Zira stepped forward, cautiously placing her hand against the door. Instantly, the symbols flared to life, spreading outward like veins of liquid silver. The deep rumbling returned, and Alex took an uneasy step back. "I really hope you know what you're doing," he muttered. Zira didn't respond. Her fingers traced the symbols in a pattern, her lips moving in a whisper too soft for Alex to hear. Then, with a sharp hiss, the massive door split apart, revealing the darkened passage beyond. Alex peered inside. "What's in there?" Zira exhaled. "Answers." That was all she said before stepping inside. Alex hesitated for only a second before following her into the darkness. The moment he crossed the threshold, a cold wave of energy washed over him, sending an unnatural chill through his bones. His breath hitched, his senses instantly alert. The chamber beyond was vast, its ceiling stretching into a void that swallowed the faint light from behind them. Unlike the ruined city outside, this place was preserved, untouched by time. Strange metallic pillars lined the walls, glowing faintly with an inner light. But what drew Alex's attention most was the central platform. It was circular, slightly elevated, with a single floating device hovering above it. The device was sleek, smooth, and pulsated with a steady blue glow. But what made Alex's skin prickle was the way it seemed to recognize them. As soon as they stepped closer, the device reacted. A whispering hum filled the room. The floating object pulsed once, and suddenly, images began to appear. Holograms. Alex's eyes widened as he watched ghostly projections flicker to life, playing out scenes from a time long forgotten. He saw Zira's people, tall, elegant, moving with a grace that was almost inhuman. Their eyes glowed with the same eerie light as the symbols on the walls. They weren't just advanced. They were something beyond comprehension. But then the scene changed. The once thriving city was in chaos. A great war, no, an annihilation, was unfolding before his eyes. Massive shadowy figures, like the creature that had hunted them earlier, descended upon the city, ripping through the elegant structures like they were made of paper. Zira's people fought back, but it was futile. One by one, they fell. And then, nothing. The holograms flickered and died. Silence filled the chamber. Alex turned to Zira, his stomach twisting. That thing that attacked us. It's one of them, isn't it? Zira clenched her fists. Yes, the ones who destroyed my people. The ones who erased us from existence. Alex felt the weight of the words settle on his chest. But if they won, he asked slowly, why is this place still here? Zira turned to him, her expression unreadable. Because we left something behind. Alex swallowed. What did you leave? Her eyes met his, glowing softly in the dim light. The only thing that could stop them. Alex's heart pounded as the weight of Zira's words settled over him. The only thing that could stop them. He turned back to the floating device, its eerie blue glow casting long shadows across the chamber. The holograms had vanished, leaving only silence in their wake. What do you mean? Alex asked cautiously. What did your people leave behind? Zira stepped toward the central platform, her fingers grazing the smooth metallic surface. The moment she touched it, the device reacted, pulsing, shifting, as if sensing her presence. A weapon, she murmured. Alex stiffened. A weapon? Zira nodded, her expression unreadable. Not just any weapon. The last defense against them. She hesitated, as if debating how much to reveal. It was never supposed to be used. My people believed in peace, but when the war began, when we saw what they were capable of, she trailed off, her hands curling into fists. Alex exhaled sharply. And did it work? Zira's silence was answer enough. A cold dread settled over him. If the weapon had been effective, this city wouldn't be a graveyard. Whatever Zira's people had created, it either hadn't been enough, or it had been lost before they could use it. So where is it? He pressed. Zira closed her eyes, inhaling deeply before turning to face him. It's here, she said, but it's not what you think. Before Alex could respond, the entire chamber shuddered. A deep mechanical groan echoed through the walls. The metallic pillars lining the chamber flickered erratically, their lights flashing in rapid succession. Something had been activated. Zira's eyes widened. We need to move. Alex barely had time to react before the chamber's entrance sealed shut, trapping them inside. What the hell? He shouted, spinning around. What's happening? Zira's expression darkened. The city knows I'm here. And it's waking up. A low humming filled the space, and suddenly, the air shifted. It was subtle at first, like a faint static charge brushing against Alex's skin. But within seconds, the pressure intensified, making his breath catch in his throat. And then, out of the darkness, they appeared. Shadows. Dozens of translucent figures flickered into existence, standing in a wide circle around them. They were tall, their bodies elongated and ethereal, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Alex took an instinctive step back. What are they? Zira's voice was barely above a whisper. The last memories of my people. The figures didn't move. They stood motionless, watching, as if waiting for something. Then one stepped forward. Unlike the others, this figure was more defined. His robes flowing like liquid silver, his presence commanding. When he spoke, his voice wasn't a sound, but a feeling resonating inside Alex's mind. You have returned. Zira straightened, her voice steady. I had no choice. The figure tilted its head slightly. You were never meant to return, Zira. A past cannot be undone. Alex glanced at her in confusion. What is he talking about? But Zira ignored him, taking another step forward. The past isn't why I'm here. The war isn't over. The figure's expression remained unchanged. It was never over. It only slept. A shiver ran down Alex's spine. The weapon, Zira continued. Where is it? The figure finally turned its gaze to Alex. Directly at him. You already know. A chill spread through Alex's chest. His pulse quickened. What the hell does that mean? Zira's face paled. No, she whispered. It's not possible. The figure took another step closer, its gaze never leaving Alex. It was never a machine. It was never a thing. It was a choice, a sacrifice. The realization hit Alex like a punch to the gut. He wasn't just here by accident. He was part of this. Somehow, in some way, he was connected to the last hope of a lost civilization. And now, the enemy that had destroyed Xyrus people was coming for him. The chamber trembled around them, the ancient city's long-dormant energy surging back to life. The translucent figures flickered, their forms wavering as if caught between time and reality. The one who had spoken, the figure who seemed to hold the knowledge of an entire civilization, fixed his glowing gaze on Alex. "The choice has already been made," he said. "And now you must see it through." Alex's breath came in short, uneven bursts, the weight of the words, the eerie glow surrounding them. The very air crackling with an unseen force. It all pressed down on him, suffocating, relentless. "I didn't choose anything," he muttered, shaking his head. "I don't even know what's happening." Zura, standing beside him, was deathly silent. He turned to her, his voice edged with urgency. "Tell me, now." Her silver blue eyes locked onto his, filled with something between fear and certainty. "It's inside you," she whispered. Alex's pulse roared in his ears. "What?" Zura hesitated, then stepped forward, placing her hand on his chest. "The weapon," she said, her voice firm now. "It's not an object. It's not a machine. It's a living force, one that was hidden, placed inside a vessel capable of wielding it when the time came." His stomach twisted. "And you think that's me?" The ancient figure nodded slowly. "It has always been you." A deep, resonating boom suddenly shook the chamber. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and a high-pitched frequency filled the air, like metal shrieking under immense pressure. "They're here," Zyra whispered. Alex's body tensed. The enemy. The very force that had annihilated Zyra's people had finally arrived. And they had come for him. The figures of the lost civilization began to fade, their final remnants dissolving into streaks of light. But the one who had spoken lingered a moment longer. "You are the last hope," he said, his voice now a fading echo. "Do not fail." And then he was gone. A piercing sound, like glass shattering through the fabric of reality, ripped through the air. The sealed chamber ruptured, and darkness poured in. Not just shadows, creatures. Tall, skeletal beings with glowing, pulsating veins, their bodies shifting like liquid smoke. Their elongated hands ended in razor-sharp claws, their faces devoid of features except for piercing, soulless red eyes. The air around them dropped in temperature instantly. Alex could see his breath in front of him, forming in quick, panicked clouds. Zira grabbed his arm. "Run." But Alex couldn't move. His body felt heavy, as if an invisible force was pulling him down. His vision blurred, and his heart pounded wildly, but not with fear, with something else. A foreign sensation coiled inside him, like energy waking up for the first time in centuries. And then, a voice inside his mind. "Let me in." Alex gasped, stumbling back. Who said that? Zira's expression turned grim. "It's starting." "What's starting?" She didn't answer, because at that moment one of the creatures lunged. Its clawed hand slashed toward Alex, and the world exploded in light. A raw, untamed power erupted from Alex's body, sending a shockwave through the chamber. The creature was blasted backward, its form twisting violently before it disintegrated into nothingness. Alex stood in stunned silence, his hands trembling, his body burning with an energy he had never felt before. He looked down. His veins, once human, now glowed with the same ethereal blue light as the ancient city. He wasn't just a weapon. He was the key to ending everything. Zira stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're awakening." The remaining creatures hissed, their soulless eyes locked onto him. They knew. They knew he wasn't the same person who had walked into this place. And now, they were afraid. For the first time in millennia, The war had found its final battleground, and it was inside him.